Mom took my college fund to pay for my brother's wedding. He deserves it, she said. I just nodded, then booked my own flight. A month later she called me crying. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't even blink when she said it. Your college fund? Oh, I used that to pay for Kyle's wedding, my mother said, waving her hand like it was some overdue grocery list she'd finally crossed off. He deserves it. And that was it. No warning. No apology. Just those 3 words, like they explained everything. Kyle, my older brother, the golden child who flunked out of 2 majors, dabbled in 3 startups that never made a dime, and somehow still walked around like he owned the world. He deserved it. Meanwhile, I was the one who took summer jobs since sophomore year, skipped parties, turned down dates, and built a 3.8 GPA like it was armor. Every dollar I saved for college. For my future. For something real. But to her, that wasn't what mattered. I nodded. Just once. Said I understood. Then walked out of the kitchen like it was any other Tuesday and went back to my room. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stared at my laptop screen, blank at first. Then I typed in one thing: one-way flights out of state. I didn't know where I was going, just that it couldn't be here. Not in this house. Not after that. Because something in me broke that night. Not loud or messy. Just quietly, like a lock clicking open. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to be the good son. And started thinking about how to be something else entirely. I left the next morning before sunrise. Just a backpack, a duffel, and my laptop. No goodbye, no note. I didn't need a dramatic exit. I wasn't giving them that satisfaction. I flew to Colorado, where my childhood friend Lucas lived. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but the second he picked up the phone, I heard something I hadn't heard in weeks. Someone who cared. You okay? He asked. Not really, I replied. Then get over here. Lucas let me crash on his couch, hooked me up with a part-time job at the local bookstore he managed, and even helped me apply for scholarships at nearby state schools. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But it wasn't until 3 weeks later, just days before Kyle's big wedding, that I found out the truth. The full truth. Lucas and I were on his balcony when I mentioned, offhandedly, that my college fund had been reassigned to cover my brother's wedding. Lucas froze. Wait, your mom paid for that whole wedding? I nodded. You might want to look at this. He pulled out his phone, opened Instagram, and scrolled to a post from Kyle's fiancée, Brittany. It was a behind-the-scenes shot of a wedding planning meeting, and there, center stage, was a luxury wedding planner I recognized from a TV show my mom used to binge. The caption? Can't believe Kyle's family is covering everything we're beyond blessed #wedding dreams. And there it was. Everything. Not pitching in. Not helping out. My mom didn't just drain my college fund. She financed an entire fantasy wedding to impress people who'd forget about it the moment the cake was cut. That night, I opened a folder I hadn't touched in weeks. Inside were screenshots of my college fund statements, emails with my mom from the year before where she promised she hadn't touched it, and a few financial receipts I'd pulled when I noticed odd withdrawals the month before graduation. It was enough. And something in me hardened. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. This was betrayal. The wedding was a spectacle. Brittany had over 300 guests, 2 live bands, a 5-tier cake, and florals that probably cost more than a semester at state. I wasn't invited, of course, not that I would have gone. But thanks to Lucas, I watched the entire thing unfold online. Every champagne pop, every dance, every posed smile, I saved it all. Brittany's social media lit up like a Christmas tree. One story in particular stuck with me, a boomerang of her and her bridesmaids clinking glasses with the caption, "To Kyle, the most selfless, hardworking man I know. He deserves the world." The irony almost made me choke on my coffee. Deserves the world. That line again. They rented a horse-drawn carriage for their grand exit. I watched a clip someone posted, Kyle grinning like a man who had never once faced a consequence in his life. My mom was in the background, misty-eyed, like she had just launched her firstborn into sainthood. It was surreal, watching your entire life get repackaged as someone else's fairy tale. That night, I opened a private browser tab and began drafting an email. To Brittany's parents. I kept it simple. No anger. No dramatic language. Just the facts, dates, amounts, screenshots. My mom's emails confirming the college fund was untouched. The account's withdrawal history. A note that said, "I hope your daughter's dream wedding wasn't built on a lie." I included one last attachment, a short video I'd taken months ago when my mom admitted she'd drained the account. I'd recorded it on my phone while pretending to test a new app. Her voice was clear as day. "I mean, Kyle deserves something special. You're smart, you'll land on your feet." That was the end of my message. I didn't hit send right away. I sat with it. Thought about what it would mean. What it might ruin. But then I remembered her face, how she smiled as she said it. Like my future was a fair trade for better catering. And then I pressed send. I expected immediate fallout. Maybe a phone call. Maybe a flurry of texts. But for 2 days after I sent that email, nothing happened. I started to wonder if I'd miscalculated. Maybe they hadn't believed me. Maybe they didn't care. But then the silence cracked. It started with Brittany's Instagram. All wedding photos gone. Every post tagged. #bestever. Wiped clean. Her account went private. Then Kyle's disappeared altogether. Next came the whispers. Lucas texted me screenshots from a mutual friend back home. Some of Brittany's cousins were already gossiping on Facebook. "Did you hear Kyle's wedding was paid for with his brother's college fund? Her dad is furious. Said he was lied to. Apparently Kyle's mom took the money behind the kid's back." I didn't reply. Just stared at the screen while the messages rolled in. By the weekend, Brittany's father had posted a carefully worded status about family deception and financial betrayal, and how some people mask selfishness as generosity. He didn't name names, but the subtext was loud enough to shatter windows. That night, my phone finally rang. "Hello?" I answered. The line was quiet for a moment. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in weeks, smaller now, more fragile. It was my mother. "Honey," she said, already crying. I didn't know they'd take it that way. Please tell me you didn't mean to ruin the wedding." I didn't say anything. "I was going to pay you back," she insisted. Kyle needed this. I thought you'd understand." I could hear her breath hitching on the other end. She was unraveling. "I'm your mother," she said. "We're family. Families forgive." I stayed quiet for a few seconds longer. Then I said, "You made your choice." And I hung up. The calls didn't stop after that. She tried again an hour later. Then twice the next morning. Left voicemails that swung between guilt trips and desperate apologies. I listened to none of them. What did you expect? That I'd swoop back in, say it was all a misunderstanding? That I'd play the good son again? No. That version of me died the day she drained my future to fund a photo op. Lucas kept me updated from the sidelines. The bride's father was apparently livid, demanding a public explanation. He'd fronted money for the honeymoon, and now he felt like he'd been conned. Said if the family was willing to lie about the wedding, what else were they hiding? Kyle, from what I heard, tried to keep it together. But Brittany? She exploded. She posted a single, cryptic message on her story. "Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies." Then she disappeared offline completely. The wedding unraveled fast. Brittany's parents were threatening to cut off any future support. Her younger sister posted something about grifters in tuxedos. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. Meanwhile, back home, my mom's social life imploded. The same neighbors and friends who had cheered at the reception now whispered behind her back. The truth traveled like wildfire, ugly, relentless, and impossible to outrun. It was quiet revenge. No screaming, no confrontations. Just truth, dropped like a pebble into a still pond, letting the ripples do the damage. And through it all, I said nothing. I didn't need to. A week passed. Then another. I thought the chaos would die down after a while, that people would forget once the dust settled. But they didn't. Turns out when a family parades a lie around like a trophy, people remember the truth even more. Brittany moved back in with her parents. Someone from back home, Becca, an old classmate, messaged me out of the blue. So, the Golden Boy's marriage didn't even make it a month? I didn't answer. Just read it, closed the app, and went for a walk. But inside, I'll admit it, I felt it. Not joy. Not exactly. More like balance. For the first time in my life, Kyle was the one left explaining himself. He was the one people whispered about at the grocery store. The one whose name made people glance sideways and ask, "Is that the guy who?" And my mom? She was unraveling. Lucas forwarded me a message from his cousin. Apparently my mother had tried to clear the air at church, but it only made things worse. She broke down crying in the middle of the potluck. Tried to paint herself as a misunderstood parent who only wanted what's best for both her sons. That line didn't hold. Not when people had seen the receipts. The truth had teeth now. That's when she sent the letter. A real one. Handwritten. It came in a blue envelope with shaky cursive. I recognized her handwriting instantly, elegant, deliberate. She always prided herself on her penmanship, said it made her words mean more. Inside was a 4-page letter. No, dear, anything. Just, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to understand. She went on about how hard it was raising 2 boys. How Kyle struggled more than I knew. How she had to believe in him, because if she didn't, who would? She called it a mother's instinct. Said she never meant to hurt me, that she thought I'd be fine without the money. She said Kyle was fragile, in ways I wasn't. That I'd always been strong, always figured things out. That was the line that got me. Always been strong. It wasn't a compliment, it was an excuse. A way to justify every decision she made that left me out in the cold. Every time she overlooked me, every sacrifice she demanded, every lie she told herself about who I was and what I could endure. She ended the letter with, "I hope someday you'll come home." I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and set it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't write back either. Because I wasn't coming home. Not to her version of it. I've always believed revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be dramatic or cruel. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is quiet. Surgical. You don't strike all at once, you let the weight of your absence do the talking. And in that silence, people hear what they never wanted to listen to before. After the letter, my mother didn't try calling again. She knew better. But I wasn't done, not yet. Because there was still something unfinished. Something that had been nagging me since the moment I booked that one-way flight, the lie she told herself, and everyone else, that I was okay with it. So I decided to correct the record. Not to her. Not even to Kyle. But to the people who mattered in her world. I still had access to our old shared cloud drive, something she'd forgotten we ever set up years ago when I helped her digitize receipts. And in that folder? Every transfer she'd made from my college fund. Every screenshot. Every temporary loan she said she'd repay. There was one document that stood out most, a typed-out gift statement she submitted to Brittany's family, falsely claiming Kyle's wedding was funded from a personal savings account she had built with my father. That account didn't exist. But mine did. With my name on it. It wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. I printed everything. Compiled it into a neat, quiet dossier. Then I mailed copies to 3 people, Brittany's father, her uncle who happened to be a lawyer, and the accountant who helped coordinate the wedding expenses. I didn't include a return address. Just one note. In case anyone wants to know where the money really came from. I didn't expect lawsuits. I didn't even need them. I just wanted the lie to rot from the inside. A few weeks later, Lucas and I went out for drinks. It was late, and we were sitting on the patio of a dive bar where nobody knew our names. He glanced up from his phone and said, So, Brittany's dad froze the remaining honeymoon fund. I raised an eyebrow. Apparently he's demanding repayment. Said if Kyle doesn't return what he borrowed, he'll go public. I didn't say anything. Just leaned back in my chair and stared out at the parking lot. That's when Lucas asked me, "Do you feel better?" And that question, simple, quiet, hit harder than I thought it would. Did I? I thought about the boy I used to be. The one who sat at the kitchen table with his college acceptance letter beaming. The one who believed hard work earned rewards. The one who thought family meant something sacred. And I realized something. I wasn't trying to feel better. I was just trying to make sure the world saw what I had lived through, what I had survived. Because sometimes, justice isn't about feeling good. It's about not feeling invisible anymore. The story wasn't viral. It didn't blow up on social media or make local news. There were no headlines, no dramatic confrontations caught on video. But that's the thing about real life. Sometimes justice moves in whispers. And in whispers, the right people hear everything. 3 weeks after I sent the dossier, Brittany's father did something I didn't expect. He called me. I didn't recognize the number, so I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened, I heard a voice, calm, older, deliberate. "I know you don't owe me anything," he said. "But I want to thank you. You told the truth when nobody else would. I raised my daughter to expect honesty. I wish I'd paid closer attention to who she was marrying." He paused. "And who she was marrying into." I saved the voicemail. Not because I needed validation, but because it was the first time anyone had said out loud what I'd been carrying inside for years. That I wasn't crazy. That what happened mattered. That I mattered. I learned later that the fallout went deeper than I expected. Kyle didn't just lose Brittany, he lost her family's financial support, and with it, the last thread of his fantasy life. The wedding planner sued him and my mother for non-payment on several services. Turns out that lavish wedding had a few unpaid bills swept under the rug. My mother's friends, those polite suburban women she used to brag to over brunch, slowly drifted away. One canceled a joint vacation they'd planned for spring. Another, uninvited, her from a charity board. None of them said anything directly, of course. They didn't have to. Kyle moved back in with her. The golden boy returned, not triumphant, but ashamed. I don't know what their conversations looked like behind closed doors, and I didn't care. All I knew was that the world my mother built, one where Kyle could do no wrong and I was the invisible son, had finally cracked. And in its place? Silence. Which brings me to the moment that really sealed it all. It was a Sunday. I was working the register at the bookstore when a woman walked in. Small, tired-looking. Pale coat, cheap scarf. I didn't recognize her at first. Then I realized. It was her. My mother. She stood there, holding a paperback like it was a shield. Her eyes were red. No makeup. No mask. "I just wanted to see you," she said. I didn't respond. Not with words. I turned to the guy in line behind her and said, "Next, please." She flinched. Didn't move. So I said it again, louder. She got the message. She placed the book down gently, as if it were something breakable, and walked out of the store. Never said another word. And as the door closed behind her, I felt it. Not power. Not triumph. But peace. Real, honest peace. Because she finally saw it. What it feels like to be dismissed. Forgotten. Overlooked. I didn't hear from her again after that. No calls. No letters. Not even a birthday card, which she used to send like clockwork, even after things soured. I think she finally realized there was nothing left to salvage. That whatever version of me she thought would come crawling back had disappeared the moment she said, "He deserves it." And she was right. That version of me was gone. The boy who swallowed his anger so it wouldn't ruin dinner. The one who studied late, worked weekends, and stayed quiet while his brother coasted on excuses. The boy who trusted too easily, hoping one day he'd be seen for more than what he could sacrifice. He died the night I booked that one-way flight. But in his place, something better began to grow. Lucas offered me a full-time position at the bookstore. Nothing glamorous, but it came with health insurance and a quiet kind of satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. I picked up evening classes at a local college, paid for them in cash, 1 credit at a time. No loans. No begging. It was slower than I'd planned. But it was mine. Every small step forward was mine. I moved out of Lucas's place after 6 months. Found a basement apartment near the campus. Tiny kitchen, paper-thin walls, a window that rattled when it rained. But it was quiet. It was safe. And best of all, no one else had a key. I built routines. Woke up early. Took long walks. Cooked badly and then slowly, less badly. I learned how to make lasagna from scratch and how to rewire a light switch without electrocuting myself. I started reading more, not just textbooks, but novels. Stories where people messed up, lost everything, and still found a way to come out whole. I liked those. They reminded me that failure wasn't final. That some endings were just detours in disguise. One night I got a letter from Kyle. A single page. Typed. He didn't say sorry. Not directly. He just wrote, "I think about what you did a lot. I get it now. I don't blame you." That was it. No return address. No apology. Just those words. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because I didn't do any of this for his guilt. I did it to reclaim the years I spent making myself smaller so others could feel bigger. To prove, if only to myself, that I wasn't the background character in someone else's story. And slowly, people started to see me again, not the quiet kid with perfect grades, not the shadow of the golden sun, but just me. I made new friends. Honest ones. People who knew me not as a fallback plan, but as a person worth showing up for. I started dating a girl named Clara who asked real questions and actually listened to the answers. One night, we sat in my tiny kitchen, eating burnt pancakes at midnight. I told her the whole story. Not for sympathy. Just so she'd know. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You didn't just get out. You won." I didn't feel like a winner, not exactly. But I understood what she meant. Because winning doesn't always mean triumph. Sometimes, it just means healing in a way that makes going back impossible. Sometimes I wonder if they still talk about me, if my name ever comes up between the silences they share. But I've stopped checking. Stopped waiting for closure that'll never come. The truth is, I didn't need them to fall apart. I just needed to walk away and mean it. And I did. That's the story. Not of revenge, really. But of clarity. Of what happens when someone finally decides their worth isn't up for negotiation. If you're in a place like I was, quiet, forgotten, taken for granted, hear this. You don't owe your silence to anyone. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave. And never look back.